Hey everybody, welcome to the opening ceremony for Treme, Treme, but it's pronounced Treme. It's not short for extreme, it's Treme. It's an HBO, as you could tell, series that actually is a fictional account of post-Katrina New Orleans, but it is very real because it is shot on location and it's critically acclaimed and now going into the second season. And this is the official opening. There's going to be a screening here at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. Gary Baumgarten with Pal Talk. Good to meet you. Tell me about your character, India.
Sophia is sort of a normal teenage girl living in New Orleans. Her father died last year in the show, and so this year is very much about dealing with that and her relationship with her mother and sort of becoming more independent, I think, as a person. So.
You're not originally from New Orleans.
No, I'm from New York all my life.
What was it like to leave this environment and immerse yourself in that one and adopt a character that reflects the life there on the street?
It was really interesting. I mean, not only am I playing a character from a different city, but also, this is taking place in 2005 and 2006. So playing a teenager then is slightly different. I mean, the city itself is such a great city. I mean, experiencing it for myself is amazing. But I think the attitude there is very different, and so it took me a little while to adapt to that and sort of learn from that and see where the character is coming from. But the way it's written has helped a lot because David Simon completely understands the city, and so I think his writing has helped me sort of portray the character.
You slow down a little bit, right, compared to the pace here?
Yes, definitely. It's a lot slower there.
Well, thank you very much. Hi, Steve.
Hey,
Gary Baumgarten with Pal Talk. Good to meet you. You are a musician, and you play a musician. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, just like in The Wire, I played a redneck recovering addict, and I am a redneck recovering addict.
Woo! You weren't playing then. You were just being yourself.
No acting required in either one of these gigs. Now, it's a blast. I mean, I'm one of a handful of people that are lucky enough one of the handful of the musicians that are not playing themselves. So I get to do a little bit of make believe too, as well as it is one thing better than The Wire is I do get to sing every once in a while, and I've written a couple of the songs, and I think I wrote one of the best songs I've ever written in my life last year for the last episode.
Which one was that?
This City, which is it's on the Treme soundtrack. You see my character writing the song. Basically, David Simon came to the set one night, and Lucia and I were shooting, back up the back end of Decatur Street, and then like 11 o'clock at night, and the writers come out of the pit late, and Simon showed up, and he pulled me aside, and he said, I want you to write a song that your character would have written, in '05, and they were holding me the next day, so I was sitting around in the hotel, and I wrote the song, and I'm really, really proud of it. It's on the Treme soundtrack. It's also on my record that's just coming out right now.
Yeah, and I want to give you a chance to pitch that while you're talking to this audience. But before we get to that, was it really New Orleans that inspired you? Your being there? It was a song you wouldn't have written otherwise?
There's two that I wouldn't have written. I mean, I was asked to write a song my character would have written, and that's what I did. I like homework now. That's the difference between me now and when I was growing up. The other song that's sort of, it doesn't fit into Treme because of the time frame. We were all there when the oil spill happened. So there's a song on my new record called The Gulf of Mexico that it would never have been written if it hadn't been for this job in Treme. And then there's a new song that Lucia and I wrote that'll pop up later in this new season.
Cool. So the single comes out next month?
Yeah, the album comes out like Monday. It comes out. This is a kind of a big week for me. Treme premieres on Sunday. My record comes out Tuesday, and then I start all Letterman and all that stuff this week too. So it's like kind of coffee breaks over everyone back on your heads.
Well, but you got to do Pal Talk before you did Letterman. So
absolutely.
Take that, Dave. Thanks a lot for doing that.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
I think we're going to get Wendell Pierce next. He's on his last question with the young lady to my right. I got to tell you, you're a very lucky man because you went from one quality series to another quality series, and there's a lot of crap on television, and I really like how both of those shows got into the real community, behind the scenes, peel back the onion. But for you, obviously, since New Orleans is one place that you live, it's got to have a special place in your heart, what you're doing.
It's my hometown. It's the place of my birth, and and it was devastated by the storm. My family personally lost everything. So to do this show is art imitating life and life imitating art. So it is more than the wonderful job that it is. It will be a marked period in my life for me and my family.
The show actually shows not just the resiliency of the people, but also the struggles. And the struggles are not just the result of the storm. There are a lot of struggles that occurred that were not nature-made, they were man-made.
Oh, yeah, definitely. First of all, Katrina was a man-made disaster. Poorly designed levee system that hadn't been upgraded for a century. And it was controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers, not us, you know. So it was a man-made disaster that will be always a marked period of everybody's life in New Orleans, before that time and after that time. You know, post-Katrina and before Katrina. And what it shows is the only way you can really experience what joy is knowing the depths of despair, you know. Truly understanding triumph is understanding defeat. And so it's that whole thing of going back and forth, of understanding those struggles, that people, character and humanity is expressed, and in difficult times you really find your true character. You know.
How has that affected, in your opinion, the music that is produced in New Orleans?
I think people have become more conscious of making sure they hold on to the tradition of the music. Because jazz is freedom within form. I mean, it is the classic American art form. To honor
uniquely American.
Uniquely American. You are seeing on display in New Orleans, you know, I would dare say the greatest display of the American aesthetic in a generation since post-World War II. You know, the Marshall Plan in Europe and the building of the middle class of America. You're seeing people saying, in spite of everything, here are our values, and we are able to express ourselves individually, be adaptive, improvise, and all of that, and keep structure, build an infrastructure, keep the structure of a community, and understanding the role of culture and understanding that structure. So the music has changed, that people now don't take it as much for granted. They're like, man, this can all be wiped out in a day. And so it's reminded of how the culture came about, how the second line is a social network too. There's social aid and pleasure clubs. It was when, you know, poor people and black folks could not get insurance, so they pooled their money. And they did second lines. If your father is sick, here's some money, take care of him. If your mother dies, we're going to send them out nice. We're going to have a music behind the coffin, and we're going to dirge to the cemetery and celebrate her life coming back. All of that tradition came out of the community actually coming together. That really, the true part of the human aesthetic and the humanity is cooperation and not competition. And you understand that in heightened periods, and especially heightened periods of crisis.
The city's undergoing a transformation. There's a gentrification, as they say. With that, maybe some of that's good. There's a bit of an infusion of money. Maybe some people who previously fled the city are now embracing it and coming back. Maybe that's good. But it changes things for people who stayed when others left and are now coming back. Are you conflicted at all about that?
No, I'm not conflicted. I welcome everybody, you know.
All right, thank you.
I'm not getting on my soapbox.
No, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
I appreciate it. Enjoy it. I'm Gary Baumgarten with Paltalk. Paltalk. Good to meet you. Could you tell me a little bit about your part?
I play Annie.
Yeah.
She is a
Annie T, right?
Annie T. She's a young violinist. She starts off as a street musician last season, and this season you watch her sort of develop. She's playing with bigger bands, playing in bigger venues, trying to find her own, see if she can write songs herself.
Is that who you really are? In your part on the show?
And my part, they kind of molded Annie to have a similar background to me, so she has a classical background and actually comes down to New Orleans originally to follow her boyfriend and to sort of explore these other kinds of music. So she's like learning how to play Cajun music and trad jazz and learning how to play the fiddle, but has like a very classical background. And so I've learned to play the fiddle. It's the same thing.
Right. I know. It just depends what the genre is, whether you call it a violin or a fiddle. But have you really, in real life, as a musician, been influenced by the music there? You know, is life imitating the art?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've played with all the people that that Annie plays with, I'm playing with and learning from. A lot of times it's music that I haven't played that kind of music before, so I kind of will spend time with those musicians or the band beforehand and try to understand quarterly how it's different from something else, or there's a lot of improvising, so there's been a lot of
that's what I was going to ask you about, is the improvisation. Classical, it's very specific.
Yeah.
But with Cajun music,
Totally.
you can go out on your own and almost riff, right?
Right. Yeah, so that's I have actually been learning how to do that, and it's really cool. It's really nice, and one of my favorite things about this whole experience has been that I've worked with so many of these musicians, and they're really, really, really generous. I feel like far more than, in cities like New York and LA, musicians can be kind of just more,
right.
I don't know what the word is, something.
Yeah.
And in New Orleans,
More competitive here and more cooperative there, maybe, right?
And because it's a different thing, they're motivated by they want to pass it down, they want to share it, they want to share the songs, they want to share the music and the knowledge. It's not about trying to get to something or trying to be something. It's really just about enjoying that culture and passing it on. So they've been very, very, very generous with
And
me.
that's what music's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's excellent. It's excellent that there are places where it's still like that.
I'm trying to ensure that we get David here on live. Hi, David. Gary Baumgarten from Paltalk, Paltalk.
Okay.
On the internet. So, first of all, this is your town, right?
What?
New Orleans or no? How does it? Because everybody's telling me this is like a labor of love for you. This.
No, I'm from Baltimore.
Oh, you're from Baltimore. That's why The Wire was shot there.
Yes.
Okay, now I get it. So, tell me, The Wire was an extremely realistic view of Baltimore, and
So is this.
so is this.
I was a journalist for 15 years. It's my training. And so when I got into film, it was almost an accident. And what I really care about is the depiction being representative of what we're trying to offer. And that's, if you don't know what you don't know, there are people to ask and there's reporting to be done. And people have been generally helpful to us, and we hire a bunch of writers. I don't care whether you've written in TV or not. I don't hire TV writers and say go to New Orleans. I hire writers from New Orleans, journalists, novelists, filmmakers from New Orleans, and say join the project and let's make it organic to this place. And I think that's the difference, is that I'd rather get somebody who's in the writing room can speak for New Orleans rather than somebody that could speak for a television trope.
I've heard it said, and this is a television show, and it's a fictional account of a real situation and all that.
It's a drama.
But it's a drama. But I have heard people say that after the national news media left New Orleans, the story wasn't being told until this show launched.
That's very kind. I mean, I actually think I've read an awful lot on New Orleans, a lot of journalism, a lot of books that have come out in the last 5 years. There's been a lot of good writing, and there's been a lot of good journalism. The national media may have left, but there have been a lot of great individual efforts and a lot of great narratives have come out of the city, not to mention a few great documentaries. So we had we didn't just stumble into a vacuum. There were a lot of people that were trying to get their heads around post-Katrina New Orleans and write on different aspects, and we had the benefit of all that when we came into town. There was no economic or political fiat. What there was the people who were New Orleanians and their desire to not be anything else. And the only weapon they had in their arsenal was culture. And that city came back one second line at a time, one sax solo at a time, one crawfish etouffee at a time. Culture was the only weapon they had, and they wielded it like a sword, day after day after day, until people just started coming back. It's still that process is still going on. There's only 70% of New Orleans is home, but they've saved the city. And the people who save the city are, musicians and chefs and second-line dancers and Mardi Gras Indians. Those are the people who saved New Orleans. If it was up to the infrastructure that we call modern America to do something on behalf of one of its great cities, God knows where we'd be. And that's really the story.
Thanks, David. I appreciate it. Good luck to you. Sure. This is just one of the many live coverage events on paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users, and we'll have others in the future. I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, peace out.